to Let's Play Gran Turismo 2, episode 47. Alrighty then. Since every other event, of course, in this game is now complete, it is now time, of course, for us to move on to our final special event in the game, which is the Gt500 Championship. And as for the car itself, I've already decided on which car it is I want to use. I can just find it here somewhere. And that is this. My Toyota Denso Sard Super GT is the car I'm wanting to use for this next event. And now that I've done that, it is now time for us to head to the championship. So heading over to the race events, the special events, and heading all the way over to page 4 to our final special event in the game, and also as well as that, our final event on page 4. Since everything else is now complete, it is now time for this, the Gt500 Championship. So 5 races in this championship, like it was with the Gt300 Championship, as the tracks we are going to are Laguna Seca, Super Speedway, Rome Full, Trial Mountain and Apricot Hill for the finale, as it was in the Gt300 Championship. So we get 50 grand for winning a race and also 200 grand if we can win the championship. And respectively overall, if everything goes perfectly, then I should be able to win a maximum of about 450 grand. And well, the reason why I chose the Supra is because I just couldn't be bothered to use anything else. But yeah. Let's head to race number 1 of the Gt500 Championship. And also because furthermore, this is officially the final event I have to do before I move on to the World Championship, which coincidentally in this game is known as the Gran Turismo World League. And then after that I will be moving on to arcade mode to complete that, and then return to this game to complete the special events. Oh yeah. And already my dumbass is forgetting the rolling starts, as we have an NSX in here. We also have a Castrol Supra in this event, along with a Nissan 300ZX, another Honda NSX, and surprisingly a JGTC Viper is also in this event as well. As surprisingly I am already up into the lead after less than a lap. Already I am running wide. And shifting way too soon on the entry to corkscrew, almost losing the rear, but managing to catch it once again. And already I think I have an OP car because I have the grip, because I have the grippy boys on. Well, anyways. One lap is already completed, and at the moment I am already extending my interval to the AI. And I have a feeling, because I put on the racing soft tyres, I potentially have an OP car, because grip is super OP in this game, as I have said many times before. But yeah, this may not be the Castrol Tom's Supra, but at the very least it is still a Supra, and I was thinking about using this car for this championship because you know JGTC models, and obviously this car clearly being a GT500 car, I just figured it would be the more appropriate decision for me to use this particular model. I mean, there are other models I could have used, but in the end I decided I was just going to use this one because I wanted to. And already I am pulling ahead, and someone has already fallen well back in the field as I'm going through the Andretti curve in 3rd gear just to prevent this car from wheel spinning. Heading under the Firestone Bridge now for the 3rd time, and where I am very much en route to victory. And pretty much both of the Gt500 and Gt500 Championships respectively are pretty much rolling starts, as far as I know, at least in terms of them being starts off the line. Meanwhile, at the present time, I am currently extending my interval very much so at the front of the field, which does mean, of course, that with the Grippy boys, I'm driving a potentially overpowered car, which does also mean, of course, that I will probably have to change from these over to the racing medium tyres for probably the rest of the championship. Unless I spin, of course, then obviously I'm switching back to the racing softs, but I think at the moment I've probably made this look a little bit too easy by fitting the racing soft tyres, and essentially overall I think that's probably where the overrated grippiness has essentially been coming from, and also the main reason why I have a fairly sizable lead to the first 4, and meanwhile whoever is at the back, I honestly have no idea until I see the final results, but from what I can tell, I would estimate it's probably the Viper in second, because I have heard one of the typical opponents in this championship would essentially be a JGTC Dodge Viper, and oddly enough I'm actually racing that particular Viper in this championship. Plus, furthermore, as well as that, it would actually be nice for me to effectively win that particular model from winning this championship, which of course, unfortunately for Rhino GT4, was the one car he didn't get to win, but coincidentally for me, I'm actually racing the very Viper that he referred to. When he did the Gt500 Championship in his Redux version of Let's Play Gran Turismo 2. And through the final corner now, and almost got loose there with the wheel spin, but across the line it is victory in race number 1, and the fastest lap by pretty much less than a second. And surprisingly, it was the Viper that was all the way at the back. The STP Tizen Viper GT was all the way at the back, and I'm assuming the main reason for that is because of how many times he must have spun on course. But anyways, I have won race 1 by just under 8.4 seconds. So it was the Castrol Toms Supra in second, followed by the Honda Takata NSX GT, then it was the Mobil 1 NSX GT in fourth, followed by the Nissan 300ZX GTS GT, and the Viper was last by just under 46 seconds. Good God. I think it's relatively clear to say that even though the Viper was on the pole, that car is clearly not suitable for Laguna Seca. Also, furthermore, effectively, it's an American car as well, because, you know, it's a Dodge. But anyways, I win race 1. The Castrol Tom's Supra is currently in second, then it's the Takata NSX in third, the Mobile 1 NSX fourth, the 300ZX in fifth, and the Viper is currently last. And so, there we go. Race 1 is done, and once again, another 50 grand is won. And as for the replay, I'm not going to save it here, but I will save it further along as we go. So, what I learned, of course, from the previous race is that, well, racing soft tyres, super OP. So I think instead I'm going to switch to the racing hards for this event, you know, just to make it a bit more of a challenge. Because I think the win I had at Laguna Seca, that was pretty much too wide on my part, and obviously I prefer not to do that. But we'll just wait and see how we go, and hopefully I won't spin too much. And already the 300ZX is already up into second position, as I'm running very high on the banks there, on this very much not twin ring Motegi super speedway, as I now take the lead, and already these AI are running 3 wide into the corner, as I'm going very wide there, but somehow still managing to take the lead here at Super Speedway as we enter turn 1. And just trying to keep this car out of the wall, as I, of course, am already starting to build up an interval. But I believe it's possible. My win here at Super Speedway will hopefully not be as dominant as my win was at Laguna Seca, because I would have probably said that win was too dominant even by my standards, and as I made it look too easy. And well, at the moment, of course, it looks like I'm more or less doing the same here at Super Speedway. And also, to anyone asking, no, this is not twin ring Motegi Super Speedway. This is just Super Speedway. And also, to any of you out there who may be NASCAR fans, yes, coincidentally, this circuit itself is basically in the same shape as Darlington, which is a track in the state of South Carolina. To anyone out there who likes NASCAR, then obviously that is precisely what this circuit would essentially remind you of. As we now move on to the 5th and final lap here at Super Speedway, and also furthermore, I've discovered the laps around Super Speedway are very short indeed, because they're literally just over half a minute, basically. Whilst I am just trying my best to keep this car going, and there we go! 5 very short laps of Super Speedway, as already I am now officially 4 points clear. And the Viper finished in 3rd. And so the Castrol Tom Supra once again took 2nd, then it was the Mobile 1 NSX in 4th, followed by the 300ZX in 5th, and at the back it was the Takata NSX. and a much closer race this time than it was at Laguna Seca, but hopefully this time at least the Viper has managed to put himself into the fray. But anyways, there we go. And so the Viper has managed to get some points on the board. Reasonable points, I might add, of course. And it looks like it's going to be relatively clear who will probably take first and second. Because from what I can tell, it will probably be the two Supras. Both myself and the Castro Supra. But anyways, 2 races down and I am already 100 grand richer. As we now head onwards to race number 3. And I'm more or less going to keep the same tyres I've had on before this race, and so hopefully, if it's possible, I will more or less be able to do the same as I have been doing for the previous 2 races. Let's head to race 3, where the Romans may be. And once again, I am clearly forgetting this is a championship of rolling starts, not grid starts, as I am already up into the 3rd position and clipping both walls there, and this time into the tyre wall, as I get absolutely bonked by this AI, but managing to get myself back into position at least, and more or less where I would expect myself to be at the present time, but fortunately I have not managed to spin the thing yet. I've been loose, but I haven't officially managed to spin the thing yet, which is fortunate for me basically, but I'm now officially up into the 3rd position, and I am more or less where I expected to be, depending on the racing hards, because I prefer to challenge myself for these wins rather than just waltz away with them, which is essentially what I did at Laguna Seca and Super Speedway. And oh crap, that is a wall. And it looks like these AI have actually got some pace around here, or at least I think they do, as I am currently in 3rd position behind both my fellow Supra, and I think that's like probably the Takata NSX, because the Mobile 1 NSX I think is just behind. But anyways, oh fuck me. Yep, I should have known that was going to happen. I should have known that was going to happen eventually, so I think now is the time for me to see if I can fight my way back up, because I had a feeling with the racing hard tyres on that I was going to spin more or less sooner or later, and that did not work, Chief. But oddly enough, I think that did, as I'm trying to put myself back into contention. So what I've discovered so far is that the first wall currently doesn't work, and at the moment I have not officially left this race. And I more or less don't want to get too anxious and suddenly spin the thing again, because I've already done that once and I don't want to do it again. And there goes the NSX once again, but at least I know this time I'm actually in contention, and I now take the lead for the first time, here in Rome, in spite of how tricky it is for me to control my Supra, but I have got the soup back under control and pretty much under the bowl, I must say. And it looks like this could be very well where I just basically do what I have been doing for the past 2 races. Just taking the lead and then pretty much waltzing away with it. And also trying not to spin in spite of how easy it may, in spite of seeing how easy it probably is for me to spin this thing, but anyways. I put on the racing slicks, and I think I have officially found the combination I want to race with. Even if it looks like I am extending the interval to both the leading NSX and my fellow Supra. Unless I do that, then obviously they'll close up again. And in spite of how much crashing I've been doing in this event, I've still managed to somehow put myself into the lead, regardless of how many times I have collided with the walls in this race. And we now head on to our 5th and final lap here for race 3 in Rome, and pretty much the halfway point of the championship as well, in my honest opinion. But I think it looks like from here, as long as I don't spin, I should be able to win this race with relative ease, and hopefully not with as much dominance as I did when I won at both Super Speedway and Laguna Seca prior to this event. And now, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not extending my interval to these AI too much. I'm more or less staying about average with where the AI may be and also where I may be, basically. So just keeping it relatively sleazy here, and it is W number 3, a hat-trick of wins. And winning margin in the end, 3.3 seconds. So it was the Castrol Tom's Supra that took second, then we had the Viper in third, followed by the Nissan 300ZX in fourth, and at the back it was the 2 NSXs. As the Takata NSX eventually finished last by just over 5 seconds, so that was a close race with those AI. But at the moment the Mobile 1 NSX is still holding on to third, the Viper is fourth, ahead of the 300ZX, and then at the back it is the Takata NSX. Whilst at the top it is basically just me and the Castrol Tom's Supra, as we win yet another 50 grand, and I think that's a relatively clear implication in saying that any poverty woes I previously had, I do not have at the present time. Meanwhile, saving this event just so I can give myself a reasonable shot of my Supra, and now we can head over to race number 4 at Trial Mountain. and not going to make any changes to the car this time because I've pretty much done all I need to do. And the only thing I need to do now is basically just win the remaining 2 races. And then, as it has been with most of the events I've done recently, this should be yet another clean sweep. As of which already I am making contact with my fellow Supra and also boofing the wall with how oversteery this car is at the moment. Especially if I know I'm on minimal grip tyres, which is essentially what I'm on at the moment, but I'm managing to gather it back up again, and oh shit, I just made contact with my fellow Supra, but somehow I did not spin into the bank. Yes, at the hairpin there is basically a bank. Wherever the wall may be, that's pretty much where the bank is, but anyways. Oh, and already making contact with the Level 1 NSX, as I now pretty much crash myself past my fellow Supra and going off onto the grass, but somehow not spinning, as I am currently in the 4th position, trying to maintain control of this thing, and also short shifting as well to get as much control out of this thing as I can, even though obviously my car at the moment is currently very loose. Meanwhile, up at the front we have the Viper and my fellow Supra, as I'm now closing in on the leaders officially, and I think I've got a threshold on this thing, as I'm getting a little airborne there, and oh fuck you, and I just got turned around. And I think for Apricot Hill, if that happens again, I'm switching back to the soft tyres. Although fortunately at least that was only the 2nd lap, and like I said before this event, his AI will try to take you out. His AI will try to take you out if they get the opportunity. Oh, and someone spun. Someone has spun. I couldn't tell if that was the Viper or the Supra, but I think it was probably the Supra that spun there. Even though whoever it was that spun, they have managed to get going again, and I am catching up to the leading pack once again. I'm suspecting it's probably the Supra, but I really don't know for sure, as I'm now catching up to the leading pack. I don't know where the Supra is, but oh, okay. It must have been one of the NSXs that spun. Okay, never mind. It must have probably been the NSX that spun. And trying it again with the Castrol Tom Supra, and this time cleanly making my way past the Castrol Tom's Supra, as I almost had the lead on the previous lap, and now I take it on this lap. So one of the NSXs has already spun in this event, and immediately, as soon as I got through the first chicane, I was just immediately out of last place. And it now looks like this will officially be where I take the lead and then just hold on to it from here, whilst still trying to maintain control of this race car and attempting to bring it home in one piece. Even though realistically this car would probably be in anything but one piece if I knew damage limitations were available in simulation mode. Then obviously this car would be anything but in good condition, in my honest opinion. Especially after I got bumped through the third hairpin and I just got turned around basically by my fellow Supra, but someone definitely spun there at the start of the third lap, and I'm suspecting it must have probably been the Takata NSX, unless that was the Mobile 1 NSX, but truth is I don't know for sure. Meanwhile, onto our fifth and final lap of the penultimate race in the Gt500 Championship, and looks like I will more or less secure a comfortable victory unless I spin, and very close there to spinning, but managing to catch it just in time as the interval is not widening too much with these AI, but in spite of me using racing hard tyres, I am managing to hold on, of course, to my advantage ahead of the Castrol Supra, and then we have the Viper ahead of the 300ZX and one of the NSXs, but I couldn't tell you which one. Even though one of them had definitely spun. And oddly enough, whichever NSX that was that spun, they've definitely chomped up a huge chunk of time to pretty much catch all the way back up to the leaders. Meanwhile, it is 4 wins in a row in the Gt500 Championship, and if I can get one more, then that should be a clean sweep. This time it is the Viper that takes second in this event. Then it was the Castrol Tom's Supra in third, followed by the 300ZX, and at the back it was the 2 NSXs. As it is the Mobile 1 NSX ahead of the Takata NSX. And so after 4 races, I think first and second positions are pretty much secure at this point. The Viper has managed to take third position ahead of the Mobile 1 NSX, and then it is the 300ZX currently ahead of the Takata NSX. And so, 4 races down, and now we have just 1 race to go, and that is at Apricot Hill. As I am now already 200,000 credits richer. And now we can officially move onwards to our 5th and final race of this championship, and that is at Apricot Hill Speedway. And because I have a feeling there will probably be some spinners, I'm going to switch to the medium tyres this time, you know, just to get a little bit more grip through the corners, and also so I know the car itself does not want to fucking spin me round whenever I do something wrong. But we'll wait and see. And more or less still being plagued with wheel spin, which is more or less what I would expect from this thing. As already I am past the Castrol Supra, and he suddenly re-overtakes me again as I'm being blocked by one of the Hondas, but everyone just suddenly goes off on the exit of that corner. Meanwhile, I suddenly take the lead, and the Viper is coming back again now, but I do manage to avoid making the same mistake these AI did by running wide, and managing to keep myself in full composure at the moment. And oh crap. Okay, I just saved it. And the NSX just pushes me off at the chicane. Because I ultimately had nowhere to go. That was through no fault of my own. Meanwhile, I am currently behind the Viper and heading through to the first corner once again. And it looks like from here I will pretty much be secure for the W. But obviously the reason I put on the mediums is essentially so I would not be, you know, sliding as much as I was on the hard tyres. So I'm on the mediums. There is a bit more grip. I will be honest, there is a bit more grip this time than there was before, and obviously that's essentially what has probably made this championship yet another clean sweep. Unless I spin on the final lap, then yeah. I should be secure for this championship as long as I don't spin. And now starting lap number 3 here at Apricot Hill. As of which, I've now officially opened up quite a margin to these AI in just the space of nearly 3 laps. And my fastest lap at the moment is currently a 1 minute 12.8. And oh, dicks. And oh, shitballs. Okay. Yep. Okay, this is not okay. But somehow, in spite of that spin, I still managed to somehow hold on to the lead. Regardless of me almost losing the lead to the Viper, and it looks as though these AI are now much closer to me as a result of that spin. But somehow, unlike many other times where I've spun a car, I've actually managed to hold on to the lead, regardless of the circumstances I put myself under. But anyways, there are just these corners and one more lap to go, as I now head under the Dunlop tyre bridge. Through this rather tight hairpin in my honest opinion, and now heading up through these corners before the chicane. And it looks like everything is more or less returning to my control. And it looks like someone has spun, but I don't think that is the Viper that spun there. I'm assuming it's probably the NSX again. Well, could have been the Viper, but I wouldn't have thought of it to be my fellow Supra. I would have probably thought of it to be the Viper. Maybe even one of the NSXs, because that too can also happen. I think I'm saying it correctly. NSX. Yeah. Well, if my pronunciation is incorrect, then it's incorrect. But anyways. Through the hairpin and pretty much closing off the final lap here at Apricot Hill, and also for the Gt500 Championship, as everything is now more or less in order for me to basically make this a clean sweep. And on the main stretch, and there we go. Also furthermore, a new best lap time by just less than 2 tenths, and this time it was the 300ZX that spun on the penultimate lap, and so the Viper eventually takes second, my fellow Supra is third, then it is the Takata NSX ahead of the Mobil 1 NSX, and the 300ZX was last by just under 22 seconds in that race. And so in terms of the overall point standings, well, it is a clean sweep for me, but the Viper has really made a charge in these later races. Also meanwhile, we had a tie for 5th. So I won the championship by a clear 14 points over my fellow Supra, the Toyota Castrol Tom's Supra GT, and then we had the Viper in 3rd, followed by the Mobil 1 NSX in 4th, and we also had a tie for 5th, but it looks like the 300ZX GTS officially won the tiebreaker from the Takata NSX's last place at Trial Mountain, or result of the Takata NSX's last place at Trial Mountain. Again, there we go. And so another 50 grand for winning. And now, of course, as I'm just gonna check and see if I've got a replay. Yes, I do. And now we can move on to the victory celebrations as we get the awesome championship music again. And 200 grand. My god, that is a lot. Meanwhile, you are getting a glimpse at my trophy. Very nice. And the Gt500 Championship is now complete. And as a result of me using my Denso Sard Super GT, I have pretty much made this a clean sweep. But anyways, there we go. The Gt500 Championship is now complete. And furthermore, a clean sweep as well. And well, now we just need to wait for the moment of truth and see if it is possible for me to win the car that I want, even though I probably won't. But yeah. So there we go. The Gt500 Championship is now complete, and as a result we are now complete, of course, with all the special events. As I'm just going through these events with you, and yeah, there we go. The special events are now complete. And so now, of course, we can head over to our home page and see if we got the car we want. And no, we did not. Damn. But at the very least, I did manage to get myself another Supra. And I actually don't mind this one. It is the Toyota CDMA1 Tsurumo Supra. Yeah. So this is the prize car we win from the Gt500 Championship. And as far as I'm concerned, I probably will be considering using this car before the end of the game, probably. But yeah. That's the prize car we win from the Gt500 Championship, even though unfortunately we don't get the Viper. So, in the end of that, we are now 54.33% complete with the game, as my win ratio has now officially gone up to about 81.5%, and I now have 89 cars in my garage. I'm gonna have to start selling some sooner or later, because the maximum number of cars I can have in a garage is 100. But anyways, so the special events are now complete. Next up is the World Championship, and so with that, stay tuned for more GT2.